Every map will tell you the same thing. The North Pole is a point on the planet, an invisible dot floating in the middle of a frozen ocean. There are no borders there, no cities, no lights, and yet, somehow, it is one of the most imagined places in the world, especially in December. The North Pole, as we know it in the story of Christmas, does not exist on any real terrain, and still, almost every child in the Western world can describe it. A snowy village, a glowing workshop, reindeer tracks in the snow, elves moving with quiet joy, the scent of gingerbread in the wind. This place, though never seen, lives vividly in memory. In letters, in songs, in stories told quietly before bedtime. It's strange, isn't it, that perhaps the most universally recognized place of Christmas is not Bethlehem, not Rome, not even a real location at all, but a mythical pole of wonder, somewhere beyond reach and reason. And maybe that's exactly the point. If this story is touching you, let us know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is right now. The North Pole, in the context of Christmas, is more than snow and silence. It is a symbol of hope, mystery, and the belief that somewhere, hidden from the ordinary world, kindness is being prepared. Gifts are being wrapped. Magic is waiting. Unlike the cultural Christmases of Germany, Mexico, or Japan, where traditions are rooted in ancient soil, the Christmas of the North Pole is a tradition of the imagination. And yet, it holds just as much emotional weight. The story goes like this. At the top of the earth, in a place untouched by politics, war, or time, lives a man, kind, timeless, joyful. He doesn't ask to be worshipped. He doesn't require belief. He simply gives, and so we build him a home. We give him sleighs and workshops and forests filled with whispering pine. We draw maps that no satellite could confirm. We assign names to his reindeer, give him cookies on the hearth, and place his portrait on everything from postage stamps to supermarket aisles. But beneath the commercialization, there is something more enduring. Children don't believe in Santa Claus because they are gullible. They believe because they want the world to be generous. They imagine the North Pole, not because they've been told to, but because the idea of a hidden world where good things are made quietly and freely is profoundly comforting. And perhaps adults believe too, in smaller, quieter ways, in the way we wrap gifts late at night, in the way we address packages with labels that say "From Santa," in the way we speak in soft tones when telling the story again as if it still matters, because it does. The North Pole, for all its glitter and fiction, is one of the few remaining shared spaces of human wonder. It doesn't belong to any one country, one religion, one culture. It belongs to all of us who choose to carry it, not in passports, but in memory. It is a Christmas without walls, a geography of the heart. In the episodes of this series, we've walked through real streets and heard real carols echoing through cathedrals. But here, we begin somewhere different, somewhere unseen. And in doing so, we touch a part of Christmas that is no less real, only quieter, softer, built not of bricks, but of belief. So welcome, once again, to the edge of the world, to the place that doesn't exist, and yet we all know it by heart. Long before sleigh bells echoed across imaginary skies, long before reindeer had names or letters were mailed to snow-covered workshops, there was a man. He lived not in the North Pole, but in the sun-drenched coastal town of Myra, in present-day Turkey. His name was Nicholas, and he was a bishop. By all accounts, he was quiet, generous, moved by compassion in ways that would seem small to the world, but not to those he helped. He left coins in the shoes of the poor. He paid the dowries of young women to save them from lives of hardship. He walked through his city anonymously, leaving gifts where they were most needed, never asking for thanks. He was, in many ways, the spirit of giving made human. His legacy grew long after his death. By the 6th century, churches were being named in his honor. By the Middle Ages, he was revered across Europe as Saint Nicolaus, the protector of children, sailors, and the vulnerable. His feast day, December 6th, became a moment of small miracles, gifts left in shoes, songs sung by candlelight, stories passed on by fire. But how did this quiet bishop become Santa Claus, the jolly figure in red who rides through the skies? The journey is neither linear nor accidental. It is a path paved by centuries of storytelling, migration, reinvention, and above all, a deep desire to preserve the act of anonymous kindness. As Christianity spread through Europe, so did the figure of Saint Nicholas. In Germany and the Netherlands, he was depicted in robes, often with a staff and a long white beard. Dutch settlers brought him to the New World as Santa Claus, where his name began to shift in sound and meaning. In this 19th century America, a literary transformation began. In 1823, Clement Clarke Moore's poem A Visit from His Nicholas, now better known as Two Was, The Night Before Christmas, reimagined the saint as a round, merry figure who drove a sleigh pulled by reindeer. Then came Thomas Nast, a German-American cartoonist who, during and after the Civil War, gave Santa his red suit, his toy workshop, and his home at the North Pole. What had once been a saint was now something else, a symbol, but the soul remained. The shift from Nicholas to Santa was not a loss of faith. It was an evolution of it. It marked a transition from religious veneration to cultural mythology, and yet the essence endured. An unseen giver, a quiet kindness, a belief that generosity could move through the world unseen and unmeasured. In many parts of the world, especially in Germany, Austria, and the Netherlands, both figures still coexist. Sankt Nicolaus visits on December 6th, often dressed in traditional robes. Santa Claus, in his modern form, arrives weeks later on Christmas Eve. Children grow up knowing both names, both stories, and in doing so, they begin to understand that the spirit of giving is larger than any single figure. That spirit crosses borders. It adapts. It hides in plain sight. And what of the red suit? The white beard? The sleigh? It's easy to dismiss them as fantasy, commercial invention, or nostalgia. But they, too, serve a deeper purpose. They invite belief, not in the literal, but in the meaningful. In the idea that someone, somewhere, cares enough to give without being seen. In the notion that childhood is worth preserving, even just a little longer. That's what Santa Claus is. A memory we keep alive on purpose, a living symbol of what we hope the world might be, not just in December, but always. So yes, he began as a bishop, but he became a bridge between old faith and new wonder, between fact and imagination, between tradition and transformation. And while the names may change, San Nicolas, Sinterklaas, Santa Claus, Santa Claus the heartbeat does not. It's Sias, simply you are not forgotten. You are loved. You are worth a gift. It's curious when you think about it. Why the North Pole? Why not a mountain, a forest, or a star? Why did the world choose this invisible, unreachable, frozen point on the map to become the home of Santa Claus? Because the North Pole, as imagined in the collective Christmas myth, is perfectly unreachable, and therefore perfectly magical. The real North Pole, as scientists will tell you, is nothing more than drifting ice atop the Arctic Ocean. There are no permanent buildings, no soil, no towns, only cold, water, and endless sky. And yet, if you close your eyes and picture Santa's village, chances are you see something vivid and warm. Snow-covered rooftops, glowing lanterns, a clock tower counting down to Christmas Eve. You hear the hammering of toys being made. You smell the cinnamon in the air. You might even hear a sleigh bell in the distance. This place is not on any map, and yet it exists in the minds of millions. The origins of the North Pole as Santa's home can be traced to the 19th century, an era when the Arctic captured global imagination. Explorers were racing to discover the ends of the Earth. Newspapers printed maps of frozen oceans. Authors and illustrators used the blank white canvas of the North to paint their own stories. The pole, untouched and unknown, became a symbol of mystery. Then came Thomas Nast, the same German-American illustrator who helped define the image of Santa Claus. In an 1866 issue of Harper's Weekly, Nastru Sanda, living in a snowy, secluded place labeled Santa Clausville, NP, North Pole. The idea stuck. The remoteness of the pole made it ideal. A place removed from politics, from time, from ordinary life. A place where magic could thrive without interference. It was the perfect fiction for a perfect myth. Over time, literature and media added layers to this imagined land. In the early 20th century, stories began to describe the village, its tiny houses, its toy workshop, its sleigh garage. Radio programs placed Santa's voice in Arctic winds. Hollywood gave it color, texture, and even postal addresses. Children began to write letters, addressed not to cities or countries, but to Santa Claus, North Pole, and miraculously, letters were answered. Soon, countries like Canada and the United States adopted official postal programs to respond to these messages. Canadian postal workers even assigned the North Pole a real postal code, HOH-OHOHO, a playful nod to Santa's laugh. All of it, the letters, the stories, snow globes, builds a place that feels more real than many actual destinations. Because the North Pole, as Santa's home, is not about geography. It's about emotional territory. It's about believing that somewhere, far away from the noise of the world, a place of pure giving exists. A place where no one is too busy to care. Where kindness is crafted by hand. Where the cold outside only makes the warmth inside feel stronger. And what does it say about us as a species? That we've collectively agreed on this place, a point of stillness and snow, to represent the most generous night of the year. It says we long for sanctuary. We crave a place untouched by greed or haste. We want to believe that such a space could exist, even if only in story. And perhaps that's the beauty of it. That in a world increasingly driven by fact and proof, we still reserve a corner of our hearts for a mythical village of joy hidden in the frost. When a child dreams of the North Pole, they're not just imagining elves or reindeer. They're imagining a world where magic is normal, where kindness is organized, where someone, somewhere, is thinking of them. And when adults keep that story alive through books, through films, through whispered goodnights, we're not lying. We're protecting something sacred, a belief in the impossible, a hope for the unseen, a place we've never been, but all somehow know. There is a kind of faith that lives outside of religion, a quiet, universal belief, not tied to doctrine, ritual, or scripture. It is a faith in goodness, in unseen kindness, in magic that isn't supernatural, but profoundly human. And nowhere does this faith shine brighter than in the myth of the North Pole. In Germany, Mexico, Ethiopia, Christmas is rooted in place, history, and sacred text. But in the North Pole, Christmas becomes a belief in belief itself. A myth built not on facts, but on the power of shared storytelling. It asks no prayers, no creeds, no confession, only that you remember what it felt like to believe in something beautiful without needing proof. This kind of faith is often born in childhood, that radiant season where the world is full of firsts and wonder is as easy as breath. A child docentee need to be convinced that a man in red could cross the skies in one night, or that elves could build toys year-round in a snowy village. They just need someone to protect the space where that belief can grow. And so we do. Parents become co-conspirators in magic. Neighbors keep the story going with costumed Santas and sleigh bells on Christmas Eve. Postal workers help letters travel to imaginary destinations. All of it done with a smile, not to deceive, but to create continuity, to pass along the invisible thread of belief that binds one generation's wonder to the next. This isn't lying. This is ritual without rules. Because even when we grow up, something in us still wants to believe. Not in reindeer physics or toy factories under ice, but in what those things symbolize. That somewhere, the world still contains mystery. That joy can come unearned. That we are seen, remembered, cherished, even if we don't know how or by whom. In Say, the myth of the North Pole becomes a kind of spiritual architecture, not in the religious sense, but in the emotional one. It gives shape to longing. It offers a place for hope to rest. It reminds us that we are not alone in needing stories that lift us above the ordinary. And what does it mean that adults, who know the truth, still play along? It means we understand that faith, in its deepest form, is an act of care, that maintaining the myth is less about pretending and more about preserving, that when we bake cookies for Santa or hang stockings just in case, we are not clinging to the past, we are offering the future a place to dream. This is why the North Pole remains sacred, not because we believe in it literally, but because we choose to treat it as real, so that its meaning remains intact. It is a geography of grace, built on snowflakes and sentiment, but stronger than steel. Even those who do not celebrate Christmas religiously often hold deep affection for this part of the season, because it is inclusive, imaginative, and endlessly generous. It transcends creeds. It meets people where they are, whether they are devout, agnostic, or simply nostalgic. And isn't that, in some ways, the truest spirit of Christmas? Not the pageantry or the pressure, but the feeling that someone, somewhere, is thinking of you, that there is warmth waiting in the cold, that no one, not even the lonely, the hurting, the forgotten, is beyond the reach of magic. So when we return to the image of the North Pole, its soft hills, its gentle lights, its Kiet Hoi, we are not escaping reality. We are remembering what reality could be if only we let ourselves dream. In Tatdrim, there is no conflict, no rush. Just snow falling in silence, and somewhere beyond it, a small workshop where kindness is still made by hand. That is, the spirit of Christmas, in imaginary faith. Not a place on a map, but a home in the heart. At the center of nearly every Christmas tradition around the world is food, shared meals, warm drinks, recipes whispered across generations. But at the North Pole, a place that exists more in spirit than in geography, the gastronomy is different. It isn't passed down from centuries of agricultural necessity. It's passed through imagination, carried by books, films, and fireside stories. And yet, its impact is just as real. Because what we eat in Santa's world isn't just fuel. It's comfort made edible. The flavors of the North Pole are not dictated by climate or crops. They are shaped by feeling. When we think of what Santa eats, or what we offer him, we think of cookies. Warm, soft, spiced or sweet, paired with a glass of milk, set carefully beside a tree. This simple offering has become a global ritual, a tiny, nightly act of belief. But where did this come from? The tradition of leaving food for Santa has its roots in ancient Europe, particularly among Dutch, German, and Norse customs, where children would leave out hay and treats for Ode, flying horse during Yule. As the legend of Saint Nicholas evolved and moved westward, the offering transformed from oats to biscuits, from bread to buttery sugar cookies, with red and green sprinkles. In the United States, the practice grew popular during the Great Depression, as parents encouraged children to show gratitude for the gifts they might receive. It became not just about receiving, but about giving back, even in small, sweet ways. And so the tradition took root. A plate of cookies by the hearth, a glass of milk, and perhaps a note in a child's careful handwriting. These aren't just snacks. They are symbols of generosity, of trust, of shared ritual. And beyond the cookies, we imagine the North Pole filled with other comforting delights. Hot cocoa served in oversized mugs, steam rising in the cold air, peppermint bark, its sharp sweetness cutting through the winter. Gingerbread, thick and spiced, shaped into homes and hearts and hopeful things. These foods have become the unofficial cuisine of Christmas imagination, served at festivals, echoed in cafe menus, and recreated in kitchens across continents. Not because they came from Santa's table, but because we put them there. In doing so, we gave taste to a place that cannot be found on any map. And what of Santa himself? The image of him enjoying cookies and cocoa, his belly shaking with laughter, is not just charming, it's nourishing in its own way. It reminds us that joy can be embodied. That sweetness, warmth, and generosity are not abstract concepts. They can be felt on the tongue, passed from hand to hand. In many homes, baking these treats becomes a ritual of connection. Families gather not to impress, but to share. Rolling dough, licking spoons, decorating cookies with wild abandon. In Tessiacs, we participate in the myth, not because we need to believe it's real, but because we believe in what it represents. And in the act of giving, whether it is a perfectly frosted gingerbread man or a humble sugar cookie, we echo the deeper spirit of the North Pole, to create joy with our own hands. If you're watching this in the quiet of your kitchen, perhaps the aroma of something sweet lingers in the air. Perhaps you've already begun your own ritual, baking not just for Santa, but for yourself, your loved ones, your memories. And in that moment, you are part of something shared by millions, a kind of global comfort, shaped by a place none of us have seen, but all of us somehow know. So whether it's a mug of cocoa held tightly in your palms, or a simple cookie left beside a tree, these flavors are more than food. They are reminders that kindness can be made, that joy can be baked, that even in a fictional land at the top of the world, warmth is never out of reach. Before the snow falls, before the cookies are baked, before the sleigh is imagined gliding across a starry sky, the North Pole arrives first as a sound. Not one sound, but many. The chime of a distant bell, the hum of a choir in a snowy chapel, the gentle rise of a melody that feels like it's always been there. The soundtrack of the North Pole is not composed in a studio, it is assembled in memory, built from lullabies, soundtracks, carols, and silence. Because what does a place that doesn't exist sound like? For most, it begins in childhood. The opening notes of Jingle Bells, the warm embrace of Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas, the mysterious sparkle of Carol of the Bells. These songs do not describe the North Pole outright, and yet they define its atmosphere. They conjure snowflakes falling in slow motion. They create the feeling of walking into a room lit only by tree lights. They echo the quiet joy of belief. From classic carols to orchestral film scores, the music of the North Pole forms a shared emotional landscape. Think of the soaring, wordless magic in John Williams' score for Home Alone, or the gentle winter notes in the Polar Express. These melodies tell stories even when no words are spoken. They sound like hope. And in many homes, these songs play long before any decorations go up. The first snowfall might come in November, but the first chord, soft, familiar, marks the beginning of the season. And then there are the bells. Sleigh bells are not just instruments, they're signals. To a child, they are confirmation that something magical is near. In orchestration, composers use them sparingly, almost reverently. A single chime can bring an entire room into a state of wonder. In the imagined village of the North Pole, one can almost hear the layers of sound. Laughter behind frosted windows, hammers in a toy shop, reindeer hooves on snow, wind passing through pine. None of it is real. All of it is true. Music has always been central to Christmas, but in the context of the North Pole, it becomes its voice, speaking in tones that words cannot carry. It's why we return to these songs year after year, not out of habit, but because they summon something in us, the part that still believes or wants to. And it's not just about joy. Some North Pole music is melancholic, slow, reflective. Songs like I'll Be Home for Christmas or Somewhere in My Memory hold a gentle ache, because Christmas, even in its happiest moments, carries memory. And the North Pole, though fictional, often becomes the emotional container for the Christmases we long for, miss, or try to recreate. It's not uncommon for people to cry when they hear these melodies, not because of the music itself, but because of what it brings back. A voice now gone, a Christmas once perfect, a childhood bedroom where magic felt real. In this way, the music of the North Pole becomes a kind of portal, not to a place, but to a feeling, and we pass it down. Parents hum to children, grandparents sing softly as they bake. Entire generations learn the same notes and let them settle into their skin. In an age of noise, the Christmas soundtrack, especially the one that calls us to the North Pole, asks us to listen, to slow down. to remember it doesn't matter what your belief system is. You don't have to believe in Santa to believe in what the music is telling you. That kindness matters. That silence has a sound. That wonder still exists, even if it is tucked away in a snowy village that lives only in our collective dreams. Sotis, si son. Asa song. You've heard 1,000 times begins to play again. Stop. Close your eyes. Let it carry you north. Not on a map, not in a sleigh, but in your memory, where the bells never stop ringing. It begins with a crayon or a pencil clutched in a small, determined hand. The paper might be torn from a notebook, folded 3 times, addressed in shaky letters to Santa, North Pole. The drawing might be of a sleigh, a house in the snow, a smiling face with rosy cheeks, and somewhere between those lines and strokes, between the glitter and glue, something timeless is born, a child's vision of the North Pole. Unlike other sacred places or historical landmarks, the North Pole is shaped not by architects or historians, but by children, through art, letters, and imagination. Generation after generation has added their own layer to this evolving world. Not with precision, but with emotion. These letters are more than wish lists. They are reflections of innocence, vulnerability, hope. Some ask for toys, some ask for peace, some ask for their parents to get along, for a friend to come back, for a grandparent to get better. The child knows the address is strange. They may even know the truth, but still, they write, because the act of writing makes the feeling real. And somehow, miraculously, those letters reach their destination. Postal services across the globe have created programs to receive and respond to these messages. Canada, for example, accepts and replies to hundreds of thousands of Santa letters each year, addressed simply to the North Pole. Postal code ... Volunteers, often anonymous themselves, spend hours reading and replying, not with automated scripts, but with gentle, handwritten care. The act becomes a kind of sacred exchange. A belief offered, a belief answered. But the expression doesn't stop with letters. Children draw the North Pole, sculpt it in snow, build it from cardboard and paper. In their minds, Santa's world is not fixed. It evolves. It has clock towers, cookie kitchens, hidden doors, and secret sleigh rooms. And in each creation, we see something deeper, a longing to participate in something bigger, something joyful, something good. Adults, too, keep this world alive through film, illustration, and literature. From the Polar Express to Arthur Christmas, from vintage Coca-Cola ads to illustrated books with velvet snowflakes on the cover, the North Pole has been imagined in thousands of styles. Victorian, modern, rustic, surreal. No version is correct. And that's the point. The North Pole is as vast as the imagination allows. Artists reimagine Santa's workshop again and again, not to define it, but to preserve its possibilities. Writers shape new tales of elves with doubts, of reindeer with secrets, of magic that runs on belief instead of fuel. And in doing so, they become architects of something unmeasurable, a place that feels like memory, even if we've never been there. This is why the art of the North Pole matters. It's not about accuracy, it's about access. A child who, docent T, feels seen in the real world might find a friend in a snowy drawing. A parent who has lost someone might find comfort in watching Santa gently fold a letter at his desk. A lonely December night can be softened by a painting of light glowing from frosted windows. These images drawn by little hands, by filmmakers, by dreamers, do not just entertain. They offer shelter. They say, "Come in. There's room for you here." So whether it's a child's drawing taped to a refrigerator or a cinematic masterpiece playing on a screen, each artistic vision of the North Pole adds to the collective myth. Each one is a light in the snow, a window into a world we choose to believe in, not because we must, but because we still can. And maybe that's what makes it real. Not the buildings or the maps or the evidence, but the fact that we keep drawing it, routine to hide building it, in our minds and stories, again and again, year after year, because deep down, we're all still writing that letter. still hoping it's received. Somewhere along the way, Santa Claus became more than a figure, more than a story, more than a red suit or a sleigh. He became a shared idea, a collective construction of culture, imagination, memory, and emotion. And nowhere does this idea feel more alive than in the imagined eternal winter of the North Pole. It's easy to think of Santa as a character, someone who can be played in a costume, whose image can be printed, whose voice can be mimicked. But the truth is, Santa Claus is not a person anymore. He is a presence. He exists not in a single book or tradition, but in the space we keep open for magic, for generosity without recognition, for warmth without condition. The North Pole is his home, not because we all believe in it, but because we all want a place like it to exist. In every culture that has adopted him, in every cookie left out, every mall photo snapped, every whispered Christmas Eve is coming, we are not just retelling a myth. We are participating in it. We are feeding something ancient and human. The need to believe in someone who gives, without asking for anything in return. And in that way, Santa becomes a mirror. He reflects who we are at our best, not just as individuals, but as a collective. Because the belief in Santa Claus isn't really about flying reindeer or toy factories or who espionati or nice. It's about what happens when a community, a family, a town, a planet, agrees to act out kindness together. This is what makes Santa real, in the truest sense of the word. Not as a man who climbs chimneys, but as a spirit that climbs into our traditions, our quiet rituals, our willingness to believe just a little more than the world allows, and the North Pole. It's the vessel that holds this spirit, not a location, but a language, a metaphor that says, there's a place beyond the noise where good things are made for others, a place where someone is thinking of you, a place where you are remembered. This belief doesn't fade with childhood. It only becomes quieter. Adults may no longer hang stockings with the same wonder, but they still tell the stories. They still write from Santa on packages. They still create the magic, not for themselves, but for the people they love. In this way, the North Pole endures, as long as we bake cookies with care, as long as we tuck a small gift into a stocking at midnight, as long as we hum a carol and feel something stir inside us, as long as we answer a letter from a child, not because we have to, but because we remember what it felt like to send one. The North Pole does not need coordinates. It needs continuity. It needs someone to believe, even if just for a moment, that joy can arrive unannounced, wrapped in snow and silence. So, this Christmas, whether you believe in Santa Claus or not, consider what you do believe in laughter around the table, in hands working late into the night for someone else's happiness, in a child's eyes wide with wonder, because you kept the story alive one more year. That is the spirit of Santa Claus. Not a man, but a memory passed forward. Not a myth, but a mirror. Not a place, bata promise, to give, to remember, to believe. No one has ever seen the North Pole as it exists in the stories. There are no photos of Santa's sleigh warming up beside a wooden stable. No satellite has captured elves hammering away under the glow of lanterns. And yet, we all know exactly what it looks like, because we built it, piece by piece, song by song, drawing by drawing, night after night beside the fire. The North Pole in the world of Christmas is not frozen tundra. It's a shared creation, passed across generations, stitched together by faith, fiction, and love. It lives not on maps, but in December rituals, when a parent hides a gift with a knowing smile, when a child presses a letter into an envelope, when carols echo softly across a candlelit room. It lives when we choose to believe in something better, even just for one season. And that belief doesn't demand logic. It asks only for memory, for a moment of stillness, for a simple thought. What if the spirit of giving really did live somewhere, timeless, unbothered, waiting for us to remember? Because, in the end, the North Pole is not the point. The point is what it represents. A place where kindness is the currency, where joy is handcrafted, where love is left at the doorstep in the form of a story. If this journey into the heart of Christmas touched you, tell us, what does the North Pole look like in your imagination? Leave a comment below, let us know where in the world you're watching from, and what time it is right now. And if you believe this kind of story matters, the quiet, thoughtful kind that carries wonder in every frame, then help us keep it alive. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next cultural tradition we explore together. There's a whole world of magic still waiting.